So I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum, barely, but we have a quorum. So we'll begin. If I could have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting. That motion is made by Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you. At this point, I would like to give privilege to the floor, but I'll also do it again towards the end of the session so that you have ample opportunity. Travis?
Yes. I'd like to, first of all, express my disappointment in an earlier decision here with respect to the county attorney position. And my feeling is that if you could not find somebody that had more than 5 years of experience as an attorney, that you should have looked for a larger pool and continued. I'm sure, I don't think you could find another county attorney anywhere in the state that has only 5 years experience. And so the reason I'm here today is to talk about the other thing that's on the agenda today, and that is the county administrator. And I just want to make sure, because all this stuff is held...
Sorry.
Come on in.
Thank you.
Because all of this stuff is... most of this discussion is in executive session, and the public is not privy to hearing any of this stuff. I don't know what's going to be said in there or what's not going to be said in there, but I would just like to make sure that when you go ahead and discuss Brian Reichbach, that you go ahead and make sure that you're aware of what are in the county files about tax liens against him for multiple years, including a very large tax lien from the IRS just 3 years ago.
So, Travis, I know that we will have an opportunity later in the meeting to talk more about the county attorney position, and yes, some of that will be talked about in executive session. We'll also be talking about the county administrator and reviewing some of those applications that will, in fact, also be in executive session. But there will be an opportunity to talk on the record as well regarding those two issues as we go on today. So certainly we want to give privilege of the floor, and your points are noted. But I think at this point, we'll move through the agenda until we get to those appropriate times in the meeting?
Well, again, I will not be able to say this in executive session, so I wanted to say it now before you went into executive session. Because
All right.
to make decisions, you've got to check this off.
Okay.
Not just sitting.
Right. And certainly as it contains to any type of a personnel issue, how someone performs or would perform in a particular job or how they are performing, I'm incredibly sensitive to make sure that a lot of that does stay within executive session as we're talking about the performance of an individual. So, you know, your points are noted. Certainly anything about performance will take place in executive session.
That's fine. My concern is how can you not expand the pool if you can't find a qualified...
Okay. Point taken. Thank you, Travis. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Privilege of the floor before we move through the agenda? Okay, hearing none at this point, Dr. Duffy, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Just a couple quick updates for you. In terms of our construction, we're continuing to move along as planned, and our Workforce Readiness Center, it'll be done in December. We expect to start moving people in January. The conference center portion of that, there's some sprinkler decisions that have to be made, so that may not be open right in January, but the offices for our continuing ed and our entrepreneur center will be open and ready for business. So we're excited about that. Our renovations in Warren Hall, which is all of our student services offices, that's also moving along on schedule. We expect to start moving people into these spaces in January. So the construction projects that you all have supported and others have supported are moving along as we expected. So we'll be having more ribbon cuttings that we'll be inviting you to in the near future. The culinary project, we have our bids. We just need to do some final checking in terms of some of the requirements for the ESG grant before we award the bids. Once those bids are awarded, the work will start right away. And as long as we can keep on schedule, we still expect to move the program into the new space in mid-March. So that's moving along. And just kind of switching topics, our state budget advocacy. So we'll be gearing up as we always do to ask for support from the state for the work that we do. This year we're taking a little bit of a different approach, we meaning SUNY and the community college system in general. Rather than focusing on a per FTE funding source, we're looking to ask for take to give us a more sustainable and maintenance of effort approach. In other words, looking at a flat dollar amount that we can count on for a couple of years so that we can better budget and are less susceptible to the ebbs and flows of enrollment. We're also asking for support to increase our high needs, high cost program. So being able to respond to the workforce does require us to typically start programs that tend to have a higher cost, whether it's equipment, whether it's the technology that we need. So we're looking to have a fund where campuses could apply for some funds to help start up new programs to respond directly to workforce needs. Once we get that finalized into kind of a comprehensive one-pager, I'll share that with all of you, and would certainly hope that you would join us in our advocacy efforts with the governor's office and the legislature. And then finally, I just wanted to share a story that I thought really encompassed a lot of what we hope we can do as an institution. So I happened to be shopping at the outlets before the holidays, and one of the stores I was in, I think every single retail clerk in there was a student at SUNY Adirondack, so I had a nice time talking to all of our students. But one person in particular is an alum. He's a manager of the store, and he was telling me how when he finished his degree with us, he stayed on and finished at Plattsburgh. And by the way, he's from New Jersey. He came up here to go to college, to live in the residence halls. He stayed all 4 years on campus with us, and is now staying in the area and just bought a home in Glens Falls. So, you know, it just is a great story to kind of look at the impact that we can have not only from the first 2 years, but staying here through the Plattsburgh program, and then now being a resident and a taxpayer in your community. So I just wanted to share that with you as well. And that's what I have to report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. Duffy? Supervisor Sokol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And that was one of the points that we discussed at the roundtable was retention. So that was a really nice story.
Yeah,
That was great.
Yeah, yep, that's it.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 2, items to be discussed by the HR Director and Personnel Officer. You have in your packets a review of report on tracking of vacancies filled. It's obviously monitored by Jackie and Trish. And item number, which we do not need a resolution approving item A, but item B, ratifying the actions of the Chairman of the Board in executing the contract with Novatime for employee timekeeping system. Could I have a motion to get this on the floor before we hear a little bit more from Jackie? That motion is made by Supervisor Leggett, seconded by Supervisor Simpson. And let's go right to discussion. Jackie, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. Our old contract with Novatime expired at the end of 2016, so we've done several month-by-month extensions for support. This is, we still have the product, but this is to provide support for it. The Treasurer's Office, together with the County Administrator's Office and Human Resources, met early on in the year, determined we want to stay with Novatime, so we've been working on negotiating rates, what type of services, and then reviewing the contract. Rob Lynch, Mike Colvin from IT, Mary have all reviewed the contract. The sticker was we had to sign it by the end of November to get this low per employee per month cost. The contract does not take effect until January 1st, so it hasn't started or anything, but we had to agree to move forward by the end of the month. So I haven't, it has been signed, I haven't sent it to Novatime because I at least wanted the Personnel Committee to review it, but again, it's not effective until January 1 of 18, and it includes transitioning to their software as a service product that's hosted on their servers and thereby gives us greater support. Right now it's hosted on our server. Anytime we need help, they have to get an IT person on the phone, log in through our server to give us any help, and it'll just be much quicker and easier going forward. So again, we worked with the Treasurer's Office, the IT Department, and the County Attorney's Office to try to come up with the best solution moving forward, and it's been budgeted and approved for 2018.
Great.
So we're finishing up the paperwork end of it, basically.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it being in front of us today to discuss it, and certainly ahead of time is always a good thing. So do we have questions? Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you, Ms. Chairwoman. So there's some equipment in this too. Is there new equipment involved in this new contract?
There's not new equipment. We're actually going to be freeing up some space on our servers, as I understand it, because that's where we house it right
And does this feed directly into a payroll system as well then?
Yeah, there's like an export, import.
Yes.
That's how we do it.
Yeah.
This is all part of the time
Time block.
clocks, thank you. Time clocks and the payroll system, it's all one system.
Nice, nice. And is that $2.35 a month per employee?
That's using the clock.
Right.
So not all employees use the clock, so we don't have to pay for every employee on the
Okay.
payroll. We just have to pay for every employee that's using the clock.
And that was similar to the last expiring contract?
Well, the last contract that expired was our initial contract with them, so we had some gold star support, something that was a dollar amount. It wasn't a per employee per month cost.
Okay.
But they've kind of changed their business model, and we're changing along with them.
But that's the industry standard, any of the major personnel softwares, they're all the same way, they charge for active use.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Mike. Referrals from Health, Human, and Social Services. 3A is a request to amend Resolution 408 of 2017 to change the deletion date for the Resource Assistant number 2 position from November 21st to January 31st, 2018 to allow time to fill the Resource Coordinator position and train a new employee. Okay, a motion to put that on the floor made by Supervisor Leggett, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 3B, under Veterans, request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create the new position of van driver, number 5, position per diem, grade 2, annual salary, $12.51 per hour, effective December 18th, 2017. Can I have a motion to put that on the floor?
I'll make a motion on B and C.
Thank you. Motion made by Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor Simpson. Is there discussion regarding B and C? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4. There was a issue that came to the attention of personnel over the last several months, and at this point I'd ask that our acting county administrator, Kevin Garrity, discuss briefly, and of course Mary as well, item number 4.
Yeah, there's been a request made about how to appoint members, at-large members of the Board of Supervisors if one was to resign or move to different positions. And we have the opinion that was sent in from Brian that says it's the county board. We've had some internal and external conversations about this, and it's still not clear. I believe in the past the town of Queensbury has appointed their at-large supervisors, and then there also is the case in point about the city, how the city would appoint a city supervisor to the position. So my suggestion is we move this to legislative and rules and let them go out and get the councils from the town of Queensbury and the city of Glens Falls. It may be in the city charter, I'm not familiar with that, how they, and get this cleared up. It doesn't need to be cleared up by December 31st. Let's just move it to legislative rules and let it go through and find the proper thing, because it seems we hear one thing about home rule, and then you hear that there's a rule where the legislature does certain things, and so we're confused. I'm certainly confused. I don't know why I would appoint somebody from the town of Queensbury to serve on the Board of Supervisors, but that's the way it looks like it says in the state law. So that's what I know about it, and I'd like to see us send it to our Legislative Rules Committee and then on to the town of Queensbury and the city of Glens Falls.
And we do not need a motion, right, to put it on the legislature, just the will of the committee? Yeah, so we're not looking for a resolution today, but what we're looking for is the consensus of the committee that this is an appropriate item to move on to legislative. And is that, are there questions about it? Supervisor Brainerd?
I just want to make a comment that we should also ask legislative to look at the town supervisors, just to make sure that that is all on the same page, because of Supervisor Vanslow's position. You know, I know there was some question about whether or not that needed to be refilled.
That's
but
a
I
town
think if
board.
that goes forward,
That's a town board issue. We're just
that
speaking.
is definitely town board. There's no question there.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
we're just speaking about positions
at-large, like
of
me,
the
yeah.
Board of Supervisors
Yeah.
now and how they're
Let's get it
filled.
cleared up.
And I'll be honest with you, if you could talk to several jurists, and you'll find out a different opinion from each one you talk to. So, and it's been done, I think, one way in the town of Queensbury, but it doesn't line up with the opinion. So I think we need to get it straight.
Sure.
Now, it came to our attention that our local law, according
Yeah,
to
that one
Brian,
too.
is, in his opinion, unconstitutional as it relates to what's on the books right now, looking at the state constitution. So it does need to get clarified. And again, it only relates to 9 supervisors on the board that are at-large or ward representatives. But it does appear that the appropriate venue for that would be through legislative, and I suspect it will take a little bit of time.
Yeah, and like I said, the city charter too, that's a different setup, right?
Yeah.
No.
And what happened in Queensbury in the past? You
The
indicated-
town board.
The town board made,
Yes, but that doesn't line up with what it says.
okay.
So,
The state law is specific to at-large and city representatives, and the jurisdiction that a town or a city would have over a county employee, which all of us that are at-large or city reps are county employees, not town employees. So it is a little bit different. Claudia?
Thank you. Well, that brings up a point. Why don't we have county email addresses if we're considered county employees?
I agree 100%, and could we move that over to support services, where I think IT falls under support, correct?
I think that's just a matter of requesting and IT will set it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did make that request 4 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, and was told we just make up our own Gmails, or emails.
If you
So,
contact Mike
yeah.
Corbin, he would...
Yeah, Mike hasn't been there in all these 4 years, so, but we do have business cards now, which was
Yeah.
improvement from 4 years ago. So I'm excited to have our new supervisors have an opportunity for an official email.
Yeah, great.
And so hopefully those of you that are at-large or city reps who do not have that, you'll be able to have that issued as well. Great.
but thanks.
So is that the consensus of the committee? We're good with sending that over to legislative? Okay, great. Thank you. So item number 6, review of new applications submitted for the county attorney position, as well as the salary studies and comparisons previously prepared for the position. Part of this will have to be an executive session, or should be an executive session, as we start to talk about applications received and how well they would perform or not perform.
We need to go back.
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 5. Good catch, Supervisor Leggett.
Yeah.
Request to create the new position of Health Information Manager, grade 20, at $22.60 per hour, effective December 17th, 2017. And I'm unfamiliar with this. So, Mary, do you want to?
Sure. The county received a letter from the Office of the Medicaid Inspector General, and they're looking for documents for an integrity review. The documents would come from Westmount and the system that they used over at Westmount for Medicaid. So we need someone who is familiar with that system to just obtain the records for the state and send them over. I believe, and Jackie can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is already a title that exists under CSEA. So we basically just need to create the position, hire someone for the position, and they will get the documents, send them over, and it shouldn't be a very long-term thing.
Mary, just a point of clarification. This is what we discussed the other day?
This is different.
Oh, this is different. This is for them, to pull the records out, right?
Yeah, this is just pulling the records out of the system that they used at Westmount and sending them to the state.
It's a proprietary system, believe it or not, and it's, right?
Let's get a motion to get it on the floor. Supervisor Simpson, second by Supervisor Bramer. Discussion. Supervisor Bramer.
Didn't we have someone that was in there doing that kind of thing, pulling the records out of there earlier?
Did, yes. She no longer wants to do it.
Okay, that's that person.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the same person, but they're different jobs.
Okay.
She was doing both.
Was it part of her job description to do that?
It was extra. We were paying her an hourly rate on top of her workday to do it for us.
Any other questions?
So will there be a set term for this?
We put not to exceed 6 months. I really cannot foresee it taking 6 months, but I don't know. I don't know much about Medicaid.
Other questions? Okay. Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks. Just one more. On that, not to exceed 6 months, is there a number of hours per day or week that the person is doing?
We didn't put that because obviously the choice of the board, but if they wanted to work 5 days and get it all done in 8-hour days, I would assume that's okay.
Is this going to be a part-time position, Mary?
It is.
Temporary part-time, so are we restricted by, it's not temporary?
It's up to 6 months, so it would end after 6 months, and it's $22.60 an hour.
It would be a temporary position, but we haven't discussed setting particular hours because we don't know who's going to fill it. So I would suggest keeping it flexible because if there's somebody who has a job who's going to do a few hours a day, I would want it, or if it's somebody who doesn't have a job and can do 8 hours a day and bang it out in 1 month, respond. I think it's good to keep it flexible because we don't have a candidate.
It's kind of an unknown right now, so.
Okay. Other questions? No, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now moving on to number 6. And number 6 again deals with our county administrator applications. I would propose before we go into executive session that we discuss the salary, the items that are applicable for open session. But again, it's however the committee feels. Claudia or Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I do want to make a comment on the record in public session that I really do hope that we can improve on the prior process that we just went through for the county attorney, that we make sure we have thorough vetting of the candidates, as Mr. Whitehead brought up. There's things out there that we should be looking for about candidates, that we should have second interviews. I feel strongly about that we should have done that in the last go-around, and that ensuring that all of our candidates, our final candidates, are contacted. We had a candidate who was interested, and we did not interview that person. And I'm very disappointed about that. And finally, if we're still accepting applications, we should have that job posting out there. I searched last night on our own website, and I could not find anything about the administrator job being posted. And I couldn't find anything on something like monster.com or, Jobs Indeed or whatever they're called.
Okay, so let me break down those two concerns. One, I've asked Jackie to come prepared today to talk about where we're advertising, for how long, where it's posted, so we'll talk about that in a moment. Are you talking about the county attorney position or the county admin when you said there was someone who was interested but didn't get selected for an interview?
I'm talking about the county attorney position.
Okay, so I appreciate your comments. We'll just keep this directly to the county admin.
I just want to make sure that we are doing this as carefully as possible. We don't need to rush, and we don't need to drag it out either.
Agreed. And on that note, if it's the pleasure of the committee, what we could do is, Jackie, would you please address where the posting is for, I think I asked you to come prepared just with what we've spent or what it costs, where we could continue to go out to, but we did not put an end date on these applications, and so we're hoping that we still have an opportunity to have people submit them. And I know Supervisor Leggett had reached out to me and asked about, is this something, and perhaps it's more appropriate after we review the applications to talk about whether or not we need to re-advertise and at what salary and for how long. So, all right, Jackie, the floor is yours.
Well, this is a posting that was posted, and you'll see at the bottom where it was, and you're correct. Supervisor Bramer, it did expire on November 17th. And the additional applications that I have electronically with me today have come in during the month of November. So I did not repost it after that because I've had people in my office saying different things, and maybe we'll redraft the posting, and we're going to discuss that today.
Well, I think that
There's one thing I want to add to Claudia's concerns.
Okay.
I've asked Jackie too that we set up some written rules on how we fill positions, whether, not just this position, but any of these key positions, we need to have a set of rules, and we believe that there may be something that we, one page, this is how we're going to do it, this is how we're going to do it all the time, and how we're going to have, either we do 1 interview, 2 interviews, whatever we do, but something that we have as a guideline that we can follow every time on all these positions, because we have a couple more coming up that we need to follow the right rules, and you know, some require qualifications that meet the state qualifications, some are internal qualifications, so we're working on basically a handbook of how we're going to fill positions in the future going forward. I had that conversation. It is confusing because we seem to jump all over. So.
Well, and I would just point out, you are the Personnel Committee. You know, a lot of that should be reviewed and approved by this committee, and you should be part of that process and working with Jackie and the HR office on how to set that format moving forward. That being said, it was my understanding that we are a board of 20, and we do focus through committee process, so my understanding has always been that this committee did not put an end date on this, and that we would continue to advertise. So I don't know, Jackie, what direction you've been given by other members of the board, but unless this committee today feels differently, perhaps we should continue advertising as I think we were all under the impression we were doing, certainly keeping it up on the website. I know there were some press releases sent out with the hopes of keeping costs down. Jackie, did the Post-Star, TU, or Chronicle run any of those press releases?
Not that I'm aware of.
So again, that I guess would be a decision on this committee if you want to spend dollars to put ads out, but we did try to go the free route and do press releases and hope that our press would provide that information out to the community as well. So what is the pleasure of the board regarding that?
I'll go through what you had mentioned earlier.
You want to look at the applications first and then make the decision? Okay. So I guess at this point it would be appropriate to ask for an executive session and review the applications that have been received since the last time we looked at those, to talk about how well they would prepare.
Executive session.
You can, you just have to say them both on the record. I know, because we'll have to take action when we come out of this as it relates to advertising.
Yeah, but you can do it all at the end. I would like to talk, I'd like to also add to the executive session to talk about particular performance of a certain individual county employee also, and in the executive session.
What is the pleasure of the committee?
6 and 7.
For 6 and 7? So we have a motion going to executive session for 6 and 7. Do you have a second? Seconded by Supervisor Simpson. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We'll go into executive session. If it would please the committee, all right, members of the Personnel Committee, we are now out of executive session with no action taken in an executive session. However, we do have a couple items to discuss. First and foremost, let's discuss a motion that would be needed to put to the floor to create a part-time temporary position of special counsel to the board, the maximum of 16 hours a week at $95 an hour to start December 1st, expiring March 1st. Is there supervisor that would like to make that motion? Supervisor McDevitt, seconded by Supervisor Simpson. Is there discussion? Hearing.
I'm sorry. Just trying to, did you say the 16 hours? You did?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I think so. Yeah.
And the rate too, right? We did
$95. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to our county administrator, we have decided that there are 7 applicants for interviews for the position of county administrator. We previously discussed whether or not we would continue to advertise, and at this point in time with the committee, like to continue to advertise for that position or schedule interviews and then make the determination. What is the pleasure of the committee?
Continue to, why not advertise for the month of December, and we'll do the interviews, and the worst you can do is if one of our candidates is successful, we just pull the advertisement down, and that gives Jackie some direction.
Are you comfortable with that?
Sorry.
Yes, I would like that to be, yeah.
So for the month of December, Jackie, if you could continue to advertise in the locations, maybe send out another press release and just go through the process we have in the past and get it back on the website for the month of December. And when would you like to schedule the interviews for the 7 candidates?
Talking about a specific date?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you want to, what's the pleasure of the committee? I personally would like to see you include new supervisors, or it's certainly something that Kevin has been, you've agreed to stay on until we hire, right?
I'll sit in a chair until we get it, but I would, please, let's by January 31st have somebody here.
So would the committee like to interview
And I
in
know it's-
December, inviting new supervisors to take place during those executive session interviews? Supervisor Bramer.
Thanks, Chairwoman. Could I suggest the 18th, the day that we just set that special facilities committee meeting?
There's a soil and water meeting at 11:30. When does that end?
No, that goes in the afternoon. That day does not work.
Could I suggest Tuesday the 19th in the afternoon? Okay, Wednesday the 20th? Wednesday the 20th. Going once, going twice.
In the afternoon?
All right, so the 20th of December, morning or afternoon preference. We have 7. These are first interviews. Hopefully we'll, would the committee like to ensure we have second interviews for this
Let's have
position?
2 dates, because what if someone can't make it on December 20th?
So the 20th or the 21st? All day?
What, the 19th didn't work for people?
What's right? All day, Matt, on the 19th, you're unavailable?
I've got to be, not till then.
Okay, so could I propose then the morning of the 19th, and then the 20th, we could reach out and see when candidates are available, and then get back to Jackie. She can do that immediately, right, Jackie? And we could come up with the morning of the 19th, and then what it looks like for candidates on the 20th. Perhaps our goal could be the morning or the afternoon, one or the other. So we group them together. And then for first interviews, is it the pleasure of the committee to have second interviews?
Yes.
I think we need to do that. Then that will stop all the, we'll spend a little extra time.
I'm sure your second interviews will move into the first of the year, but
That's okay,
Jackie, that would get it started. Jackie?
How long is that person scheduled for?
My opinion would be like 45 minutes. Do you think that's too long?
That's too long.
Half hour.
Half hour?
30 minutes.
Half hour. Oh, okay, so each candidate a half an hour with, a few minutes in between. Guys, this is way easier
what
than
we did
performance
last
work
time?
plans. We did 32 45-minute meetings.
Right. Last year when we were going for administrator,
Mhm.
was that 30-minute interview?
I think,
I can't
I don't
remember.
remember.
If anybody has something specific, though, you want to be on the question list, can you please get it to the administrator, or not administrator, the HR department by the 18th? Give her...
No, we need it before that because that's something I want to look at too. By December 11th?
Sure.
So questions to Jackie by December 11th. Keep in mind, all your questions may not be incorporated based on the time frame, but we will have set questions in the same way we did the county attorney. And I'll work with Jackie on that with our county administrator. Sound good? We're comfortable as a committee? I don't need a resolution. I'm just looking for consensus. Anyone object?
What was the day we were looking at? I'm sorry.
December 19th in the morning and December 20th to be determined, but for purposes of scheduling, maybe we could, do you prefer morning or afternoon? Committee.
Oh.
Let's do afternoon and the 20th then, because that gives candidates a choice of a morning or an afternoon. Okay. Okay, very good. So now those issues are taken care of. You have a pending item in front of you. The committee requested that Representatives Jaeger and Flynn prepare an analysis on possible incentives the county could offer to encourage retirees to change their health plan. Is this an item you would like carried over to the next personnel meeting to further talk with Jaeger and Flynn about it? How about I leave that on the pending committee and your personnel chair next month can take a look at it? that okay? No higher education?
There's no timeline on this particular one, is there?
It would be for changes effective the benefit year starting January 2019.
Yeah. Take a little time. Yeah. I also hope that this committee will continue to talk with Jager and Flynn about offering additional supplemental plans such as cancer, additional dental, things like that, that now that we have an automatic system, I think, Jackie, that's on your radar for this year, right? For 2018. At this point, is there anyone that would like to speak? I'm sorry, there's vacancies approved by the Filling Oversight Committee. Please make sure you take a look at that. Resolution is not required, but FYI for the first Assistant County Attorney and Self-Insurance Specialist. And is there just privilege of the floor before we close? No? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn? Made by Supervisor Supervisor Leggett.
And before I do, I want to thank you, Rachel, for chairing an effective personnel committee through the year as well. The meetings have been very organized, and you've kept track of a lot of discussions, and you've also brought up looking at personnel as in a more professional manner throughout the year, so thank you.
Thank you, Craig. It's been a privilege and my honor and a great experience. Thank you. So that motion to adjourn was made by Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Bramer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The meeting is closed.